Yo, 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 another guitar lesson here for you guys. Got a question here from Adam. Eye opener for certain on the last video I did in regards to your rhythm. Struggling using a metronome, which may sound silly, but I don't do it enough and have never really been taught how to use one. So it's definitely not silly. I think you're pretty much par for the course. I think most guitar players that are just playing for fun don't use a metronome, for sure. It depends on what level you are. I mean, it took me years before I started using one, so it makes sense. Can you make a quick video on how to properly keep time? I know without these skills I will never be able to play with others like I hope to eventually. Yes, for sure. Let's do the best we can here via the YouTubes. I will say just a little caveat: if you do, want to do a private lesson via Skype, I can really point out where you're lacking in your rhythm by just listening to you play. That's something to think about, anybody that's interested in that. But for now, we'll go ahead and address the question: how to properly play with a metronome. I've got Pro Metronome here. The light's kind of screwy there. And this metronome, I've got it set up here for 4 beats per measure. So most music you hear is in 4/4 time. And the basic thing you want to get down, I guess, is, I know when I used to not play with a metronome and I used to not really think about rhythm while I was playing, it kind of blew my mind when I found out that basically all music, exceptions, there's some exceptions obviously, but very rare, most everything you hear is basically to a rhythmic grid. So every note you hear in time is basically, you can think of it like a grid. And so you can find the grid, on any song here. Let me play a song. I'll play one from my band here, and I'll show you kind of how to feel the beat. So, okay. So if I want to feel the pulse here, basically you're trying to find a pulse. So I'd feel like this. That's what I'm hearing. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So you want to break it down. Any song, you can do that to any song. Here, let's just do another song here. This has got a lot of drums going on, but I can still hear faster tempo. Still, you got that pulse. Or you could do, yeah. So practice, one good thing to do is just practice, even without the metronome, when you're listening to music. Tap your foot, tap your hand, find the pulse. That's what the metronome is emulating. So I think it's important to know that. You're not just playing to a metronome, you're playing to the pulse of any given song that you may perform in the future, or that you may perform with people. And that's what they're hearing, and that's what they're feeling. Okay? So we'll just start our pulse here at 70 beats per minute. And so the first thing you want to do to play in time is just play a single note in time. We'll just start with the most simple thing possible here. So we got A. And it'd be good to probably count 1, 2, and maybe accent the first beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, it's important to know, depending on how fast it is, it's going to be harder to play. If you don't play with a metronome, you're going to have kind of a sweet spot where you probably play naturally. If the metronome's set slower, it's going to be really hard to play because you're going to want to push. And if it's, set faster, it's going to be really hard to play because you're going to be dragging. So if you're frustrated, if you're really just trying to play with the metronome, if you're too fast, speed it up. If you're too slow, slow it down. Find the sweet spot and play around with it. I would say most people starting out probably between 90, 80, 110 probably is probably going to be a pretty good place to start. But music in general, it's kind of all over the place. So that's just one note. Now another thing you can do, maybe step it up a little bit. Let's play with a scale. We'll just play the first 4 notes of the A minor pentatonic scale. So that's going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Repeat the last note, and you just kind of got this loop going. And you don't have to play staccato either. You can play legato. Your preference. But what is really going on is I've been doing this for a long time, but I want you to really hyper focus on the metronome, not what you're playing. I would say that's the most important thing to know. I have students that I teach them how to play with the metronome, and they start playing, and they are not listening to the metronome, and I'll say play with the metronome, and they'll go, and I'm like, what are you doing? Are you listening to the metronome? They're like, no. Here's the thing is, most people, when they haven't played with metronomes, they're used to listening to themselves. Fair enough. That's part of the process. You got to you want to hear what you're doing. But when you're playing with a metronome, see if you can give all of your attention to the metronome. That's why just playing one note at first is a good idea. Just listen to the metronome. Okay? And then just from there, you can play chords, obviously. Maybe I'm going to do a G chord. So just do maybe down strums. And so this tempo is kind of slow. You may notice watching this. At times, if I'm off, I'm probably rushing just a hair every once in a while. But so that's all in time there, because I've got that, the metronome's just reaffirming every time where the grid is. And this is also, most musicians, I would say, in the recording studio are playing to a click, playing to a metronome. That way, especially if you're not recording together, that way it's all cohesive. And then when you're performing, not always that there's a click. I mean, there's some gigs I play with, but there's in-ear monitors, there's clicks. But most of the time, it's not that way. There's no click. Your drummer's the click, obviously. But I'm still feeling that pulse. So work on feeling that pulse. I hope this shed a little bit of light on, how to get started using a metronome. Start really simple, and you gotta listen to the metronome. I know it sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised at the students. I mean, it's a different skill set. You're playing, and you have to listen to something else while you're playing. It's a completely different skill set. So be easy on yourself. If it's frustrating, that's normal. It might be a little frustrating at first. Keep at it. Let me know if this helps, especially you, Adam, responding to you. And again, if you guys want any one-on-one lessons, hit me up, because I can, especially with something like this, even just one-off lesson, I can kind of launch you in the right direction for that kind of thing. So, all right, peace out.